An interesting story out of St. Louis. Now, David Freese, who was a very solid infielder for the Cardinals, and he's also from St. Louis, was voted by the fans to be in the club's Hall of Fame, the Cardinals Hall of Fame, obviously not the Baseball Hall of Fame. And he, after much thought and deliberation, turned it down because he didn't think he was worthy of being in the Cardinals Baseball Hall of Fame.
And he grew up in St. Louis, Chris. Like he grew up as a Cardinals fan. He had liked to play for your hometown team, and he has the utmost respect for all the players who are in the St. Louis Cardinals Hall. You know what I mean? I want to just give some context. Like he's not dissing the organization or anything like that.
He didn't think he was good enough.
He's worthy, right?
But I look. He was not a great player. He won't have any consideration for the Baseball Hall of Fame and all that. But I think he should have accepted the honor. And I agree, it's not a disrespectful thing to the team because, he's doing it out of the right place. Like his attitude is just, I wasn't good enough. I don't think I belong in there. But the fans think you belong. The fans voted you in. And again, I'm not going to say he's disrespecting them or anything. But Rob, the reason they voted, first of all, he was a solid player. He made an all-star team. He was a career 277 hitter.
Chris,
he
that's
wasn't
not
a power
Hall of
hitter.
Fame.
Hold on. We ain't talking Hall of Fame. We're talking about the team's Hall of Fame. And you know what he did in 2011 to lead them to that World Series was nothing short of magical. Magical. We still remember Kirk Gibson. Kirk Gibson was nobody's Hall of Famer, but we remember Kirk Gibson for the shot the home run he hit for the Dodgers.
And he's not going to be in the Dodgers Hall of Fame. He's not going to be in the Dodgers Hall of Fame.
He also didn't say it was one hit. This guy set team and Major League Baseball playoff records for total bases and RBIs during their run to the World Series championship. He was the National League Championship Series MVP and the World Series MVP. Like, he caught lightning in a bottle, man, and got busy. They don't have that championship without him. So I think he should have accepted it.
I give the guy a lot of credit because all the Hall of Fames are watered down. They're putting everybody and anybody in. And he's saying, I got standards. I had a great World Series. I had 1 year. I was unbelievable. But 1 year, Chris, and one run doesn't make you worthy of a team's Hall of Fame. Some of the greatest players, Stan the Man Musial, one of the greatest hitters in baseball history, is a St. Louis Cardinal. He's in the St. Louis Cardinal Hall of Fame. He's saying to himself, I don't belong in the same sentence with him or Lou Brock or Ozzie Smith, who won 14 straight Gold Gloves. And I'm not talking about the Baseball Hall of Fame, Chris. I'm talking about in St. Louis. Right. He's just saying, I did have a great run, and I understand why the fans would love him, Chris. You never forget when you win a World Series as a fan. Am I right? It don't happen
because
that often.
That's what you want.
But does that mean you belong in the Hall of Fame? And I know it's not the Baseball Hall of Fame, but the St. Louis Cardinals Hall of Fame. That's a storied franchise. It's not like, Chris, other than the Yankees, which team has won more World Series? Second place to the Yankees.
No, the Cardinals.
The Cardinals. They're that kind of franchise. This is not like, well, Tampa Bay won only one World Series and David Freese was the guy who got it done. You're in the Tampa Bay Hall of Fame, right? If you only won one and he was the reason why. That makes sense?
Well, when was the last one they won?
Oh, it was after that. What was that? That's 2011?
No, it was him. They've been in another one. But the last one they won was 2011.
So that was who
knows when they'll win another one?
That was 12 years ago.
They ain't looking like they're going to win it this year. That's for darn sure. I get it. Look, obviously he's not, Stan Musial and guys like that. Of course not.
Right.
Ozzie Smith. But still, I mean, they deemed it like, man, our last great. I mean, they've had very good teams since then. So it's not like that's the last year they were good.
Right.
But it's
they just
the
haven't
last
won the
year
World
they
Series,
won
right.
it, and who knows when they'll win it again. And he was, I don't know what happened to him that year, Rob, but he was something special in that run. That's what.
No, he had an unbelievable run. And you know, baseball is a streaky thing, Chris. You could be hot for 2 or 3 weeks, or you could be ice cold and not get a hit in the postseason.
Yeah,
like
no
it's
doubt.
either or, feast or famine. But Chris, let me just spin this a little bit, okay? Because David Freese didn't want to go in, think about the sports, all sports, not just baseball. Who would you take out of the Hall of Fame? Who would you take out if you're, and we want to hear from you guys too listening, who doesn't belong? Who would you say got in and you would want to take them out of the Hall of Fame? And Chris, I got a couple.
Well, I got one off the top of my head, Scott Rowland.
Scott Rowland, we both agree, okay? This is the odd couple's going to agree.
Yeah.
Scott Rowland would be number one, Chris. He would be out of the Hall of Fame. In the NBA, it would be Tracy McGrady out of the Hall of Fame.
Man, I'm not going there.
Okay, hold on. And my last one, John Riggins, Chris. You remember with the Washington. John Riggins made one Pro Bowl. He was an All-Pro one. But he won that Super Bowl, so he got in with Washington. But he only made one Pro Bowl and one All-Pro, Chris. That ain't a Hall of Fame career.
I hear you. But I look, Riggins, for most of his career, was thought of as a average, solid back, right? I mean, he was okay. But, Rob, I tend to agree with you. But he put together a stretch. It was 2 years, really, where dude was freaking dominant. Remember that? Like, when they
Chris,
won.
one All-Pro?
I know.
I'm just saying.
And look, it ain't easy to be All-Pro, especially back in that era as a running back.
No, but you would think more than once is what I'm saying.
I feel you, but do you agree that right there at that run in the 80s, Riggins was like one of the top running backs in the league? He had a 1,300-yard season and 24 touchdowns, which led the league.
Let me ask you this.
And then he had another year. He had 1,200 the next year in 14. I get it, but it was kind of his impact felt outsized during that little run they had.
But, Chris, even during those 2 years you're talking about?
Yep.
3.6 yards a carry. That's not impressive. That's not like you got to go to the Hall of Fame. 3.6.
No,
they handed him the ball a lot.
Yep. And they went to back Super Bowls too, remember? So that
right. I'm saying his name was out there.
They were like the top, right? They were a top team, and he was the bell cow.
He was the horse.
So I agree. I mean, it did feel like if you had asked me, before we brought up the topic, how many Pro Bowls did John Riggins make? I
wouldn't think it was
4 or 5. Yeah, I would have thought he made more. But he wasn't a phenomenal running back by any stretch.
Let me ask you this, Chris.
I
okay,
get that.
So we agree on Scott Rowland, who just got in, is going to be enshrined.
We don't agree on Tracy McGrady.
Okay, no. Give me an NBA. Give me somebody from the NBA that you just off the top of your head who got in.
Off the top of my head, I mean, I don't.
You don't have anybody like you thought.
I'd have to look at the list. Yeah.
Okay.
Before I came with somebody off the top of my head, you have anybody else?
So, Rob G, jump in here too, because you're in tune. I was thinking, not NBA wise. I was trying to think in the NFL. There's some like kickers, Chris, who don't have John Stenerud. You remember him?
Jan Stenerud. Yep.
Jan Stenerud. I'm sorry, Jan Stenerud. Right? You remember him?
Yep. But he was a great kicker.
Okay.
I mean, we could argue about a lot of kickers.
And Chris. Guess how many percent? What was his percentage?
How many kickers are even in? Well, I'm looking at it now.
He converted only 67% of his Chris. Not even 75. 67. That's missing. You're making 2 out of 3. That's not great.
I will say this.
Like when you go to Adam Vinatieri, I bet you if you look up, I bet you look up Adam Vinatieri. I bet you he's at 80%, Chris, or somewhere like that. Like.
Adam Vinatieri, Percentage of field goals made, 83.8.
Well, 83.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Hall of Fame.
I'll say this though, Robin. I'm not gonna name names. I'm not trying to take anybody out of the Hall of Fame. They're in. But if you go back in the day, and I'm even accounting for like the difference in stats, and I'm talking about football, basketball, maybe even baseball. I haven't looked as closely at baseball. Mm-hmm. But, and again, I'm understanding the era, right? I'm not holding the quarterbacks to the same standard, right, as they are held today because it was such a different game and all that. But there are guys, and again, in the NBA, that you're like, wow. I mean, when you really break down their numbers or their winning or lack thereof, you do say, wow, he was a Hall of Famer. You know, there's a basketball player I can think of, and I actually am a big fan, but only made one All-Star team and he's in the Hall of Fame. He made one All-Star team. I mean, you brought up John Riggins. And so it was a little different back then.
How about Bill Bradley? Was. Bill Bradley with the Knicks, one All-Star game.
Yeah. And he if I'm not mistaken, okay. Yeah.
What?
Well, I thought he might have. It's the Busher, I think, who's on the top 50. And now the Busher's on the all 75 team. Now he made 8 All-Star teams, but
so that's different from Bill Bradley, Chris.
Yeah.
Do you think one All-Star game, like for real? That's not Hall of Fame. That's just not.
No, I feel you. But hey, they're in, and